All right, wow, it got quiet real fast in here. Well, we're gonna get started, guys. I want to introduce myself and actually welcome you to Lindgren Functional Medicine. If you've never been here, we're so happy that you're here this evening to join us. My name is Megan Van Pay. I'm actually the life coach here. So I work with weight loss clients, I work with gut optimization, trying to get the gut healthy, overall wellness when it comes to overall health. So as we go throughout the evening, if you guys have any questions throughout the evening, please feel free to just ask them as we go. And then, because for me, I'm a person that forgets usually, so just ask them as we go. And we're just going to kind of talk about where we are as a society when it comes to nutrition and health and wellness, and where we'd like to see that go, and how we're helping revolutionize that here with Lindgren Functional Medicine. So, all right, so the standard American diet, all right, so people think, oh my gosh, I don't even know what to eat. I don't know what's healthy. This is primarily what we're eating here in the United States. The health of our nation is at a huge risk. We are continuously getting sicker and sicker and sicker because this is the types of foods that we're putting in our mouth. I was telling Dr. Lindgren today, I meet with a lot of people, and I think the problem comes down to the fact of when I meet with them for consultations, they say, I'm primarily eating pretty healthy. And I question then, saying, we're all kind of eating healthy, but what kind of healthy are we eating? We're on the rise. We have more technology, we have more doctors, we have more resources at our fingertips, but yet we are having increases in type 2 diabetes, increases in heart disease, increases in cancer, when these things should be trending down, but unfortunately they're still trending up. And the problem it ultimately comes down to is it comes down to the food that we're putting in our mouth. There's a lot of other things that play a role in it, but when it comes to some of these diseases, a lot of them are actually based on what we're putting into our mouth, and we're choosing convenience over our health. Okay, so we're choosing, we live in a society of stress, stress, stress. And we're running from one thing to the next thing. You guys probably had to rush here tonight, okay? But yet, we're choosing then, to stop at the McDonald's, or we're choosing to, not plan our meals, so we either don't eat, or we choose something convenient, like a packaged or processed food. But the food that we're choosing is directly impacting our health, and it's hard because, like I said, our society leaves us confused. They, tell us that these things are healthy. For example, honey whole wheat bread. Okay, we think it's a healthy option. We're not choosing the white bread, right? But it's actually not a healthy option. And there's just going to be some things that I'm going to go over tonight that, if you have questions and you're like, I thought that was healthy. Ask any questions that you may have, because that's, I think, the problem that we have in our society. It's just a confusing. All right. This is kind of where we're gonna focus most of our attention on tonight, is this one slide here. I'm going to talk about why we're overweight, why we're sick, and why we're tired. I would say one of the number one things that we put down for diagnosis codes for patients here is they're fatigued. Okay, we're just tired, we're sick, we're just burnt by the end of the night, and a lot of times this sometimes comes down to the food that we're putting into our mouth. Okay, one of the reasons is our increase in grain consumption. Okay, so we're eating a lot more wheat, and like I said, we moved away from our white bread to our wheat bread. That doesn't make it any healthier. A statistic, as of 2000, the year 2000, Americans were consuming 200 pounds of grain per year, a majority of it coming from wheat flour. 200 pounds. And we think, well, it's healthy. It's really not. Okay, most of that wheat is very different than the wheat that our ancestors used to eat. I talk sometimes with people who are in health, and there's actually this wheat called Eichhorn wheat, and it's wheat that is typically used in Europe, and it's traditional. It's usually what our ancestors actually did eat, but that's not ours anymore. Most of the wheat in the United States is actually GMO. So GMO meaning that it's a genetically modified organism. And the wheat, they actually attribute that to a lot of cases of celiac disease, gluten intolerance, and just plain old digestive disorders. So we're trying to fix and heal our guts, but yet we're putting something into it that's poking holes in our digestive system. It's causing us to have leaky gut syndrome, which is causing causing all the other different problems that may be going on in our body, and our gut dictates a lot. The next thing is abundance of medication use, all right? According to the CDC, 22% of Americans have used 3 or more medications in the last 30 days. Okay, some of us are on medications, totally understand that, but a lot of these medications that they're talking about are high blood pressure medications, high cholesterol medications, type 2 diabetic medications. These are all medications that most times can be gotten rid of if we choose the right foods that are going into our mouth. Now, that is one of the things that we do try and work on here with patients is oftentimes when patients meet with me, I'm in conjunction with Dr. Lindgren. We chat, we powwow, we try and get patients off of those medications, and a lot of times we can simply because we're changing their diet. The other thing too is most times our diet's being made up of, processed foods, trans fats, corn, soy, dairy, and gluten. And those are all things that are very inflammatory to our body. So it's causing this inflammation in our body. And one of the things Dr. Lindgren and I said today is sometimes we just need to address inflammation for people. We just need to figure that out, and then the weight loss part will come. But, inflammation drives disease. And a lot of those diseases, like I was just listing off, that is, again, due to the food that we're putting into our mouth. The decrease in fruits and vegetables, it's crazy to me how little fruits and vegetables we actually consume in our diet these days. So it's actually become a chore. It's crazy. I thought about this. I have a 15-month-old daughter, okay? And sometimes people ask me, what does your daughter eat? Holly is part of my family, so she knows that my daughter eats exactly what we eat at the kitchen table, okay? So we're not making a separate meal for her. She eats the same broccoli and cauliflower. She doesn't know any other mashed potatoes except for cauliflower mashed potatoes. She just eats that. But it's crazy because, children, we're influencing their taste buds from a young age, but so often we're feeding them sugar. We're feeding them processed foods, and it makes a difference. And the same thing, so it's a study actually found that oftentimes vegetables and everything like that, we're getting very few actually from our diet. And what we're ending up doing is these are the vitamins and minerals that are essential to our body. As we are supplementing because we're not getting them from our foods when we should actually be getting them from our foods and then supplementing from what we may not have. I love supplements. We use supplements here. So there's a such thing like we don't all need to be on the same amount if we're getting a right diet. But I mean, there's things there where we do need to supplement. We live in Wisconsin, right? So we're going to have to supplement with vitamin D. But can we get vitamin C? Yeah, we probably can. Most people, I tell my clients this all the time. If you guys were to say, what is the food that has the most vitamin C, what would you say? Exactly. I'm surprised. So most people actually say oranges when I ask them. Okay, oranges don't have the most amount of vitamin C. It's actually bell peppers. So eating a bell pepper has the most amount of vitamin C, and put it into your daily diet, and you may prevent getting the flu come this winter. So like I said, we need to supplement where we lack, but then get primarily our fruits and vegetables and get our vitamins and minerals from there. The next thing is, you guys probably already know this, but the increase in sugar, all right? I would say probably almost all of my clients that come in to me, I ask them this question every single time, and I say, what is the biggest challenge that you are having right now? And their biggest thing is sugar. I can't get off of sugar. I like candy, I like chocolate, I like sugar. It lures us in. It's a very addictive, I would call it a drug. All right, it is changing our brain chemistry. It is luring us in and addicting us. So the thing with sugar is in the last 65 years, it's increased exponentially. In the US, we consume over 100 pounds of sugar, all right? Actually over 150 pounds, and half of that comes from high fructose corn syrup. All right, high fructose corn syrup, if you don't know, they're taking corn and they're modifying it all the way down to pretty much a syrup that is put in your soda, that is put in different breads. So like honey whole wheat has high fructose corn syrup in it, depending on the brand. And it's, first of all, we'll talk about GMOs a little bit later, but it's a genetically modified food, so they're taking corn and genetically modifying it, and we're using that for sugar. But it just spikes your blood sugar exponentially compared to, you know, if we choose like a stevia or a Splenda. And when it comes to weight loss, when it comes to weight maintenance, when it comes to overall health, you know, Dr. Lindgren does some tests sometimes for, like, you know, you've probably heard of a hemoglobin A1C to test for diabetes, or just a fasting insulin. Those are things that when we are constantly having those blood sugar spikes, you're on a roller coaster all day. You are, I tell my clients, you may be irritable because you're having sugar and then it's dropping every time your blood sugar is dropping. I tell people we live in a stressful society, but when we consume sugar, what it does ultimately is it spikes your blood sugar and then it drops it. Okay, and this is where you feel fatigued and you're like, oh my gosh, I need a pick me up, give me some more sugar. And what's happening is when we have that low blood sugar, we're producing cortisol and we're producing adrenaline, both stress hormones, to try and bring that blood sugar up. We already have enough stress in our life. We don't need to add to it with the food that we're consuming. The other thing, like I was talking about before, is sugars in really essentially everything. And the thing that's crazy is, you know, we put it in this or we put it in that, and it's like we think a food is healthy. Like I said, the honey whole wheat bread. But your best bet when you're looking at food is to actually look at the ingredient list. When patients come in to me, I tell them, you know, they'll look at the nutrition facts, but you know, manufacturers actually don't have to differentiate natural occurring sugars between added sugars. So you'll just see the number of added sugars in the nutrition facts, but that doesn't mean that something, you know, is extremely unhealthy. So, I mean, if you were to look at tomatoes, canned tomatoes, you're going to see some naturally occurring sugar in there, okay? But I just told one of my clients today, I said, look at that ingredient list. There should be tomatoes, probably some sea salt, and maybe some citric acid, which is a preservative. If there's anything more beyond that, don't buy it, all right? I don't care what that label says. I don't want you to buy it if you can't understand the ingredients, all right? Next thing is oils. Does anybody know when I say hydrogenated oils what that means? List some that you would think of. No? Okay. So hydrogenated oils are your sunflower oil, your safflower oil, your canola oil. These are all oils that have been on the increase because if you remember back, I don't know exactly what year it was, but back when there was the craze of saturated fats is the worst thing for you. Okay, saturated fats is what's causing heart disease. We need to get rid of saturated fats. So what did we do? We replaced it with hydrogenated oils. Okay, so these are vegetable oils is what we call them. They're really not made from vegetables, so I don't understand why they call them that. But they're oils that withstand high temperatures of heat. So when I tell people if you go to a restaurant, they're going to be using these high oils because most times they're frying things and they need the oil not to burn while they're making the foods. But these things, it's funny, is because we replaced our saturated fats to try and help heart disease with these hydrogenated oils, but yet heart disease is continuously on the rise and is at the highest level that it's ever been. So obviously using these hydrogenated oils did not help at all. So again, certain examples: corn oil, soybean oil, canola oil. You know, like I said, heart disease, obesity are on the rise, and yet these are still continuously used. For patients, I try and say get rid of those, and the thing that stinks is they're in everything. Okay, I tried to buy organic sweet potato chips at Costco thinking I'm eating something healthy. Okay, they're better, they're organic, they're sweet potatoes, but they have sunflower and safflower oil in them. Why? Okay, why? And we bought them. So we're not perfect. We are not perfect. But it's like I tell my clients, you're trying to, you know, you're trying to be the best that you can and buying organic, you know, but yet they still put it in it. So even this healthy food still has these types of oils. They're a rare occurrence in my house though, so I will say that. Processed foods. This is, it's crazy. Sometimes being known, obviously when I go into the public, knows what I do for a career. So sometimes I just look at people's grocery carts when I'm behind them. And yes, I do. And it is crazy to me. First of all, the people in front of me spend probably twice as much as I do, okay? And the foods that they're putting in their cart are outrageous. I mean, I know people have different, you know, you've got more family than I do. There's only 3 of us, so I get that. But it is just crazy the amount of processed foods that is going into our carts these days. And I think, you know, sometimes I think like, well, this person, they all get it, they get it. And then I go to the grocery store and I'm like, no, there's like tons of people that still don't get this. A study found that nearly 63% of Americans' diets are coming from processed foods, while only 12% is coming from plant-based foods like fruits, vegetables, nuts and seeds, legumes, beans. Okay, 12%. And of that 12%, that's including the apples that are like an apple pie and apple streusel, and the, you know, the spinach that's in these spinach cakes that are in the morning. So can you imagine, it's probably like 6% that's actually coming from whole foods. But 63% of our food is coming from processed foods. So I ask patients sometimes, I'm like, what do you eat for food? What does your typical day look like? And again, I usually get, you know, this is what it is and stuff like that. But obviously we're buying it, we must. So I don't know if there's a disconnect between knowing what processed and packaged foods are or are not, but I say shop the perimeter of your grocery store. That's really what you need to do. I told one of my clients today, I said, I posted a picture one time of what I bought at the grocery store, how much it costed and everything like that. And my professor actually commented on it and he said, do you shop anywhere do you shop anywhere in the middle aisles? I said, no, I really don't. I shop the organic aisle, that's it, to get some, you know, maybe coconut milk or get some dried beans or stuff like that. But no, it's the perimeter of the grocery store that we need to be staying in. So like I said, we're over-consuming those packaged and processed foods. GMO foods is another thing of why we're getting sick, overweight, and tired. Genetically modified organisms, are you guys familiar with these? We don't talk about them enough in our society. We really don't, and it's super detrimental to our health. So genetically modified organisms are, what they've honestly done is Monsanto has honestly, he's changed the seed, how a seed is made so that it can withstand drought, it can withstand chemicals, it can withstand all these things so that it doesn't die. You know, so we can have these exponential high amounts of crop being you know, harvested without dying due to, you know, natural courses. The problem with it is the United States has absolutely no regulations on GMO foods, okay? 60 countries in the world either have regulations on them, so what they can actually do or what foods they can have genetically modified, or they ultimately ban them. Okay? In other countries, they ban genetically modified foods, and there's no regulations at all in the United States at all. Okay? GMO foods are a lot of times what they're contributing to our digestive problems again, celiac disease, and then there was one more thing that they are contributing it to. It's got to be our gut, honestly. I can't find it here, but it's the root of gluten intolerance. Okay, we always hear about people who are celiac, but most people, I tell all of my patients they shouldn't have gluten because it's detrimental to your gut. But that is ultimately, most people just don't even tolerate it, and that's a lot of times they're attributing to GMO foods. The thing is, sometimes we can't even get around it. Okay, 94% of the soy in the U.S. is GMO. 94%. That means only 6% you would even be able to find. I don't recommend people have soy, especially because we're working a lot of times with, you know, menopausal or postmenopausal women, and that drives up your estrogen. We don't need to have these fake estrogens in the body. But also 90% of corn in the United States is genetically modified. All right, so that corn that you're buying at the farmer's stand that we think we're eating really healthy in summer, it's modified, okay? It's genetically modified. And if it can withstand all that stuff in nature, what do you think it's doing to our bodies? all right? The last thing, which is really kind of all of these things just kind of make me sick to my stomach when I talk about them, but is our sodium intake. All right, just like sugar, sodium has exponentially increased over the years. So Americans, get this, Americans over the age of 2 years old are averaging about 3,400 milligrams of sodium a day. We should be having 500 milligrams or less. 3,400. All right, that's crazy. And it's funny because most people think, you know, they get a diagnosis from their doctor and they're like, well, I'm avoiding sodium. I'm not going to add salt to my foods. Okay, but then they go on and they eat these packaged and processed foods. Only 25% of the sodium that's in our diet actually comes from the table salt. 75% of what's in your diet of sodium comes from packaged and processed foods. Okay, examples, 1 cup of potato chips has 160 milligrams of sodium. How often do we eat 1 cup of potato chips? All right, not very often. I've had clients tell me before they would eat the whole Doritos bag if it were their choice. The other thing too is we buy soups, and I have clients say, oh, I'm eating healthy, you know, I'm buying these soups and the cans and everything like that. A half a cup of canned chicken soup has 900 milligrams of sodium, almost twice what we should have in a day. All right, sodium leads to heart disease, it leads to an increase of stroke, and it also leads to increase of heart attacks. All right, so again, it goes back to the processed foods. What we're putting into our mouth is we're putting so many processed and packaged foods into our mouth that all these things can be avoided when we just simply stick to whole foods. All right, that was a lot of information. We're going to kind of move on after this. Is there questions about some of the stuff that I just went over there? No? All right, let's keep going then. So we say, what do we do next, Megan? You just told me I can't eat anything, right? I can't eat any food. So we have 2 different options here at Lindgren Functional Medicine. One of them is New Direction. It's a ketogenic diet, and I'll go into both of these in just a little bit. It's a prepackaged meal replacement, low carbohydrate, high protein meals. Okay, we've all heard ketogenic diets in the media and everything like that, and I'll go over it too a little bit. The other option is Prolon, and this is actually coupled usually with a whole foods intermittent fasting diet. It's a fasting mimicking diet. It's one of the first that has ever been developed, and we are proud to be able to have it here as an option for patients. The nice thing that we offer here is it's individual plans. Okay, like I said, Dr. Lindgren and I talk. Okay, my patient is your patient. Okay, what are they doing? What are they on? You know, how can we help them not only with nutrition, but how can we help optimize their hormone levels? How can we reduce inflammation? How can we use different supplements or peptides to help bring our body back to a healthy state? And so I meet with patients for an hour, okay, and I sit down with you and I ask, where have you been? What have you done? You know, what diets have you done? What can we do specifically for you to help you so that we're not just the next diet that you're in and out the door and you're done? I was listening to a talk today and it was talking about how this isn't just done for the next 2 weeks or the next 30 days or until you reach your goal weight. This is a lifestyle, okay? And it doesn't just happen overnight. I didn't start eating the way I did overnight. It came with time. But that's why we work together as a team to try and, you know, make your life the best that it could possibly be. So New Direction, like I said, it's a ketogenic diet, meaning that your body is getting in what's called ketosis. This is ultimately a process where we limit your carbohydrates to such a small amount that your body doesn't have carbs for energy anymore. It starts living off what are called ketone bodies, and these are produced in the liver. All right, so those ketone bodies produce energy for you. It burns fat. Then the fat obviously is lost. You lose weight. Okay, it's meal replacement, meaning that it is going to be different shakes, soups, oh my gosh, there's tons of different things, bars, chips, everything like that. Like I said, it gets you in ketosis. It is a low calorie. For most people, it's about 600 to 800 calories, depending on male, female, how many products you're having in a day. The nice thing about this is once you're in ketosis, you don't really feel very hungry. Once you're there, It's like I can just stay in this and I don't feel super hungry. Weight loss on average for women is 1 to 3 pounds weekly. I say that's an average, okay, so some weeks it's going to be more, some weeks it's going to be less. Men 2 to 5. The thing that I do tell my patients about this though is it's an all or nothing kind of thing. You're either in ketosis or you're not. Okay, so if you eat carbohydrates and it kicks you out of ketosis, doesn't mean that you're done for it, but it's just going to take a couple days to get right back into ketosis. Okay, and this is an option that we have here. My favorite option that we have here in the office is actually Prolon. So Prolon is a fasting mimicking diet. So it's actually, like I said, it was the first fasting mimicking diet that was developed to get the beneficial effects of fasting for a 5-day water fast. So there's a lot of beneficial effects that happen with fasting, and the best that they say would come with 5 days of water fasting. A lot of people don't want to do that. Okay, I don't want to just consume water for 5 days, and it's just sometimes uncomfortable. So what this man, it's a doctor, his name is Dr. Walter Longo. He's actually from the University of Southern California, and he has this university where they have studied longevity and health. So how can we live for a long period of time but still also feel young, feel good? So he studied centenarians, so people who have lived over 100 years old. And when he does, fasting is one of the things that they implement into their diet. And he actually created this Prolon that actually has precise macronutrients and micronutrients that your body believes you are in a 5-day water fast, but you're actually consuming foods. Okay, patients do this for 5 days. We usually do it 1 to 3 times, so 1 to 3 months in a row, followed by a whole foods diet. So it looks like 5 days of Prolon, 25 days of whole foods, low calorie intermittent fasting. Like I said, we incorporate intermittent fasting into this, so that's meaning intermittent fasting is what we do is we tailor down that window of eating to a short period of time. So, you know, we can go down as far as 2 hours. Most patients don't usually do that. You know, 6 to 8 hours is where I recommend trying to get to. A minimum, I say for any person, you should intermittent fast for 12 hours, a minimum. That's meaning you go to bed, or you stop eating at 7 o'clock, you don't eat until 7 o'clock. That's just for your basic digestive system to clear out and just be fine after that. Benefits of it. So one of the things that's awesome about Prolon is we can use it for athletes, enhance performance, trying to boost that performance. The other thing that is probably the biggest benefit that patients get from it is enhanced cellular function. So meaning that we trigger stem cell based regeneration, and we also trigger what's called autophagy, and that's ultimately the cleanup of dead and damaged cells in your body. And that's what ends up happening with this. The other thing too is fat focused weight loss. So we're preserving that lean muscle mass and then getting some fat focused weight loss. The coolest thing that I've seen with working this with patients is they lose the weight and it doesn't come back on. That's rare sometimes for doing programs like this. It's only 5 days, but it comes off and it stays off. And it's crazy because the next time patients do it, they do it that second month. For some reason, I don't know if their body's prepped or we've been, you know, eating whole foods for a while, they lose more the second time that they actually do it. And again, this is a tool we use along with whole foods. So it's something that you're not doing every single day, but it is a really, really cool tool. And like I said, then we couple this with a whole foods diet. So this can actually stand alone, or patients can do it with Prolon. This is where we tailor it to you. Okay, so the nice thing about this is foods that you'll be eating are whole foods. All right, you're going to be eating vegetables, lots of them. Nuts and seeds, different nuts and butters, you know, nut butters, seed butters, healthy fats and oils, beans, legumes, gluten-free grains, as long as we tolerate them. Grass-fed, organic, wild-caught meats, all right? Fruits in moderation, healthy beverages, and specific sweeteners if you do need them, all right? We try and get people to just eat real whole foods. And like I said, this doesn't come overnight. I work with my patients every single week, and we just try and see progress. And it's so cool, because there's a client of mine who I tell this all the time, he used to stop in Quick Trip all the time. He travels for his job. And he used to get all these different things. He told me 2 weeks ago, he said, Megan, I go to Quick Trip and I just go to the bathroom. That's all I do now. I said, that's awesome. But you know, we had to change some things. He's traveling all the time. He wanted hot foods. Small change, we got him a thermos. Okay, so he's got a thermos with hot soup in it for lunch every day. He doesn't stop and get the snacks at, Quick Trip. He packs them for himself. Huge changes. He's seen weight loss. He's eating real foods. Okay, foods to avoid. So we're avoiding any packaged and processed foods. So the biggest things also too that we're avoiding, Dr. Lindgren, you'll hear it preach it in every single one of our clients. I want you to avoid gluten. I want you to avoid dairy. I want you to avoid sugar, and I want you to avoid soy. Those are all things that she tells patients to avoid. I preach the same exact thing, all right? So we're not consuming that. The thing about this is we need to get into the kitchen, all right? We need to cook. That is sometimes where my patients have a little bit of difficulty. So I give resources, I give recipes. The booklets that you guys have in your hands tonight has breakfast recipes. It has lunch recipes. It's got dinner, and it's even got dessert recipes, okay? So, but we got to get into the kitchen. Calorie range is usually 600 to 1,200 calories a day. And then, like I said, we couple that with the intermittent fasting window of 6 to 8 hours. All right. This works. It takes work, but it's a lifestyle, and it's something that you can have for the rest of your life. Okay. It makes a big difference in your life. Next thing is actually, I'm going to ask Dr. Lindgren to come up for this. This is additional weight loss add-ons that we have, that when patients sometimes, they just need that extra boost, or they just, they've got really bad cravings and they just can't get over those cravings. There's lots of tools that we can use here in the office that just help boost that metabolism and help with whatever's going on. So I'm going to ask Dr. Lindgren to actually come up, and she's going to talk in more detail about these peptides, which are pretty cool.
Yeah, weight loss is hard. It's complicated because it's individualized. It's precision medicine. Everyone's weight loss journey is completely different, and everyone has different needs. We definitely have general principles that we follow, but I don't believe that there's one right diet that works for every single person, which is why, we don't have like one set protocol. If it's not sustainable, then it's a fail as far as I'm concerned. It's not a gimmick that we're trying to do to get weight off people just so it comes right back on so that you're back here. It's a success story if we can keep it off of you. So in addition to the diet, I'll try to not spend too much time going over these at the risk of repeating the peptide talk, which seemed to go on forever. I thought I'd just go into a couple of things that we add on to augment metabolism and weight loss, decrease inflammation, and that sort of thing. And that's liraglutide, MOTS-C, 5-amino-1-MQ, CJC with ipamorelin, melanotan-2, tezophenone, ketone esters, and MIC-B12. Who names these, right? Jeez. All right, well, ask anyone who knows me. They know that this is my very favorite peptide right here. It's called liraglutide. Peptides, for those of you who weren't here for our last talk, are just short-chain amino acid sequences that upregulate pathways that already exist in the human body. And liraglutide, hi Rita, is a glucagon-like peptide 1 agonist. So there are a couple in this class. This particular one is almost identical to the one that's in the human body. Liraglutide increases sense of fullness, slows gastric emptying, improves insulin sensitivity. It absolutely destroys appetite. That's not how it works for weight loss, but it's a nice side effect, especially when we're promoting fasting and intermittent fasting. If you want to chew off your arm and we tell you to fast, that makes it difficult. So this is a nice tool to use in conjunction with that. We can see some insulin bump, and we've actually measured that now that we've been using it this long, but only with carbohydrate consumption. Improves metabolic parameters like lipids, blood pressure, decreases inflammatory markers, HSCO, CRP, adiponectin, waist circumference. It's not a stimulant, it's not habit forming, there's no rebound weight gain when people come off of it, which is pretty common with weight loss tools. Not a controlled substance. It has some nice long-term side effects too, which are pretty cool. Positive effects on neurodegenerative disease. I won't go into that data, but there's really exciting data on using it in patients with dementia and neuropathy. It's cardioprotective, so decreases risk for heart attack and stroke. It can be used with another peptide that we use very frequently here called CJC, ipamorelin. But because of some effects it has on something called somatostatin, it needs to be taken separate, so they can't be taken together, about 6 hours apart. The dosing structure is pretty broad. We start people low and we increase based on tolerance. The most notable side effect is nauseousness, which is more pronounced in patients who are consuming a high carbohydrate diet. This is actually a commercially available peptide, but we prefer the compounded one because we can adjust the dose more slowly if we need to. For the best long-term weight loss results, we encourage patients to use it for 6 months. Some people elect to stay on it longer than that, it's just at really tiny doses, but you don't need to maintain that weight loss. Again, biggest side effect is nauseousness. We don't use this in patients with a history of medullary thyroid cancer. It does not cause thyroid cancer, and I can go into that more later if someone has specific questions, but that's the only group that it's contraindicated in. MOTS is next. This is a mitochondrial peptide, super exciting, enhances insulin sensitivity, increases blood sugar uptake by muscle, modulates fat and muscle metabolism. I think it's easiest explained by MOTS replicates in the human body physiologically what exercise does without exercising.
Oh, sign me up. Sign me up, seriously.
At the risk of getting the hook, you must move your body to lose weight. But if you could go for a walk in your sleep, why wouldn't you? So this is a really cool peptide. It's used for performance enhancement. It's associated with longevity. Those centurions that Meg was talking about all have higher levels of MOTS-C. This is given typically once a week, although we can use it more frequently than that. So we can use it every other day. Lots of dosing protocols for this particular peptide. 5-amino-1-MQ. This is not a peptide. It's a small molecule, but we're talking about weight loss. And this is something that we can definitely use. This increases your body's own production of something called NAD, which is instrumental in cellular metabolism and energy stores. It's in every single cell of the body. As we get older, it declines, shock of the century. 5-amino-1-MQ increases not just NAD stores, but something called SAM as well. So this is something that overall improves not just energy pathways, but detox as well. Again, increases energy, but improves metabolic parameters, adiponectin, insulin resistance, decreases inflammation, improves body composition and lipid profiles. The nice thing about this particular peptide is that it's available in an oral capsule, and a lot of the peptides that we use are given in a subcutaneous injection. Exhibit A. So these are small needles. This is how we typically administer peptides. So they're small, but if you have a phobia of needles, it's still a needle. It's based on a whole bunch of things. So we typically, we don't have an exact protocol for setting people up with weight loss. Sometimes they come to Meg first, sometimes they come to me. And where we get labs sort of depends on the individual patient. Sometimes this boils down to numbers. Sometimes it boils down to just logistics, what people are willing to do, what it costs. Okay. Some peptides are very expensive to use, like liraglutide is costly. If you could add them all together, well, that would be great. But just, people have resources, and so just trying to distribute them that makes in a way that makes the most amount of sense. So a lot of factors go into making that decision. CJC 1295 ipamorelin, we use this a lot here. This is a growth hormone augmenting peptide. Independent of CJC's effects on growth hormone, this modulates metabolism as well, induces changes from white adipose tissue to brown adipose tissue, which burns more calories. This improves your cell's ability to use that fat for fuel. We typically dose this when we're augmenting growth hormone at bedtime, but based on the most recent data, it looks like it might work best for weight loss if we dose it in the morning, and maybe even split that dosing through the day, so it's before meals, and then even like before a workout. It needs to be given on an empty stomach. When there's food in your stomach, it blunts growth hormone release. Side effects pretty well tolerated. Most people have like a flush that lasts for about 10 or 15 minutes after they inject it. People can have a local site reaction, like some itching or like a little bump. Sometimes that's more pronounced than others, and we need to manage that separately. But overall, really well tolerated. We do see improvements in body composition when we augment growth hormone. And here and there, we have patients that gain weight. If you did their body composition, you would see that that's from muscle mass. But for women specifically who want to see that number go down, that's not okay. Tesamorelin is another growth hormone releasing hormone, which is much more powerful than CJC at inducing growth hormone production. This is okay for guys in my experience. But again, much more anabolic than CJC is, so we have a tendency to see more muscle production, more weight gain related to its anabolic effects in women who aren't particularly wild about that. Contraindications, not a ton. We do not augment growth hormone intentionally in patients who have known actively growing untreated cancer, but that's about it. Because of the nausea that people can get with the liraglutide, sometimes they tolerate it best at night. Sometimes people feel better if they take it during the day. Right. So we definitely could split that CJC during the day. You have to work through that flush. Some people say, well, isn't going to make me tired. CJC doesn't put people to sleep. It just augments that growth hormone release. So it just makes sleep deeper when you get to sleep. So there's a lot of different dosing structures. They just can't be taken at the same time. Melanotan 2, this is a fragment of something called melanotan 1, which stimulates melanocytes. Those are the cells in the skin that produce pigment. Currently we use melanotan 2 mostly for tanning, which is pretty cool. It also has positive effects on libido. It mobilizes fat. It suppresses appetite. Meg was talking about inflammation. When people hit a particular body mass index, and that's different for everyone, but I would say 40 and up, we're dealing with a different metabolic situation than people who are lower than that. And by that I mean we're dealing with a significant amount of inflammation that we're not in people who have BMIs lower than that. And so instead of just hammering people with a BMI over 40 with liraglutide or CJC, we really need to treat the inflammation first. Otherwise, that weight just does not want to move. So this is nice to use in those patients. Tesofensine, another non-peptide. This is a small molecule. This is now in phase 3 clinical trials. When we first started using it, it was in 2 for treating obesity. This was actually originally investigated for treating neurodegenerative disease, so Parkinson's disease and Alzheimer's disease. Didn't work for that, but they found that when patients were on it, they lost a bunch of weight. So it was subsequently studied for weight loss. It is technically a serotonin, norepinephrine, dopamine reuptake inhibitor, so it improves not just weight loss, but mood as well, which is pretty cool. Improves blood sugar, insulin, adiponectin, metabolism, suppresses appetite severely. There's a lot of dosing ranges, but 500 mics daily. Again, this is nice. It's given in an oral capsule, so no shots here. Really well tolerated, some gastrointestinal side effects, but mostly well tolerated. We're cautious using this in patients who are already on an SSRI or SNRI just because of the potential risk for serotonin syndrome. There's nothing reported on that. I think we'll see that data come when it's finally FDA approved. The issue with tesofensine, we can't get it. How long has it been?
Since February.
Yeah. So there was a run on it, and it's just been really difficult to get our hands on since. But now that it's in phase 3 clinical trials, I think it will be commercially available in the relative near future. Ketone esters, only a few more. Again, not a peptide. Ketone esters are high concentrations of something called beta-hydroxybutyrate, which is the main ketone-based fuel source. Ketone esters increase leptin, which decreases hunger. They increase mitochondrial biogenesis, lower lipid content of fat tissue, makes your cells more efficient. Typically dosed before meals, about 5 grams before meals seems to be the most effective dosing. Some people find that they get a little bit nauseated after they drink these. They're in a liquid form, so they do better if they dose them throughout the day. They're a little pricey. about $1 per gram. So you do the math. They're delicious. Has anyone ever had these? Yeah, they taste like motor oil. Totally kidding. They're awful. They're absolutely awful. They're disgusting. It's terrible. They're spectacular if you can get past what they taste like. And there's only 2 companies right now that make them. One is Ketone Aid and the other is HVMN. And you can get them directly from their site or Amazon like everything else. They're pretty cool though. Lastly, MIC B12. This is B12 with methionine and acetyl and choline, which are lipotrophic amino acids. These are just sort of something that we give in an injection when people come in for their weekly follow-up with Meg. These amino acids help mobilize fat, improve metabolism, they support the liver, regulate blood sugar. B vitamins are essential in regulating circadian patterns, so these actually help with sleep. Your hair is better, it's stronger, you feel better, your mood is better. Again, they're typically done in a weekly injection, although sometimes we do them even more frequently than that. So lots of stuff. Before I jump to questions, does anyone want to hear from a real life patient? Or are we all exhausted? Come on up, Laura. So Laura is half patient, half employee. But formerly patient.
Yes.
And this is just for the recording. Because none of us are okay.
All right. So, hello, everybody. I'm Laura. So, as Dr. Lindgren said, I was a patient for many years and then now an employee. So, I feel very lucky with that. So, to kind of explain my journey, you almost have to know where I've been, where I am, and where I'm going. So, for most of my adult life, I've either been gaining weight or losing weight, never ever staying the same. And at my former job, I remember meeting with people going, I'm never the same. I'm either gaining or on a diet. So that same 30 pounds I have lost so many times, it's crazy. It would just come back and then it'd start over. And I feel like I've tried every diet on the face of this earth that was out there. And a lot of them work, but they're just not sustainable necessarily afterwards. So about 20 months ago, I started my journey, and it hasn't been as quick as I'd like because as a very impatient person, I expected that it should be gone in 6 weeks, right? So, but I've learned over time and through conversations and education that these ladies have provided that I need to make it a lifestyle. It needs to be a lifestyle, not a diet. So we're working really slowly at getting me through that and maintaining it. So when I was talking to Lynn about actually talking tonight, I felt a little insecure, quite honestly, because I'm not at the end of the journey. I'm still kind of in the middle. And she said, but look at what you did over the holidays. You didn't gain a pound, you didn't backslide. And it took somebody to say that to give me the confidence to be able to talk about it, because we had candy in the house, we were going out to eat, we had company. And for the first time in my life, that candy sat there and I didn't eat it. And I didn't hide it so I could eat it later. So that was really critical for me to get through and work on that. So as I'm going through this, as Megan also talked about, absolutely a sugar addict. I have struggled with that my entire life, and liraglutide is my new best friend. It is truly the only thing that has ever taken cravings away from me. So for the first time, I can tell you that I don't have cravings. I can do the intermittent fasting. In fact, I usually try to fast from 6 p.m. and not eat till 10 the next day. And sometimes it's 11:30. I'm like, oh, I better eat. And it's not even because I'm hungry. It's because just I feel like I should fuel my body with something healthy. So that has been a really wonderful experience. And as we're working through it and doing it, it's just understanding your body and kind of just paying attention. I was watching that sometimes I thought I should be eating and I wasn't even hungry. But I literally had to stop and go, are you hungry? Do you really want to eat? And so it's creating that understanding. And I'm just really lucky that I found these guys and I can work with them on a daily basis. So whatever your needs might be, I would highly encourage, spending some time talking, learning about the peptides. They work fantastic. They're a healthy way of doing some of these things. And then the whole food eating or the Prolon is also another nice alternative. So.
Yeah, what is a reasonable amount to lose? Well, let me answer your first question, which was, about how much do you lose on average with Prolon. Meg, do you have a?
So Prolon is a little bit different. Each person's different, but from speaking from experience from people who have done it, I would say that an average in that 1 week is probably about 3 pounds. And like I said, it comes and stays off. But we're not doing Prolon every single week, so we're not losing 3 pounds a week. So what you said in terms of like when we do the whole foods, most of my patients are on average of probably 1 pound to 2 pounds a week, as long as they're following. One of the things that I find is that a lot of times with my clients, it's more than just a weight loss journey that they're meeting with me. It's changing their lifestyle, changing the way they think about themselves, the way they think about what they're eating. So even if we didn't have a pound weight loss that week, we made progress towards getting rid of the candy that they had in their diet. And now we no longer have that, which then in turn ends up to be weight loss in the end. So I don't know if that answers your question.
And we measure metrics as well because we're so fixated on that number, the weight number, which I think is a poisonous number, quite frankly. In fact, we have stopped weighing women. Unless they're coming in specifically for weight loss. If they're a new patient, we do that. But I feel like that we put so much emphasis on what that number means, and somehow it's a reflection on how we value ourselves. But when we look at metrics like body fat, muscle composition, waist circumference, some of these other metabolic parameters, inflammatory markers, that gives us a much better idea of where you are nutritionally, from an inflammatory standpoint, so it's not always loss on the scale. And to your concern about, am I going to deflate like a balloon? Right? So yeah, that's never our goal. It's never our goal just to just tear it off of you. It's
this excess skin hanging.
Well, right. Well, yeah. I suppose you could argue maybe a good problem to have, but right. It's not a sprint. It's a lifestyle change, and it takes a while to get there, and it's slow. It's small changes that you make along the way, but then it's sustainable, and then it's not a diet, right? It's just what you do. And I tell people, maybe Meg doesn't do this. Treat it 80-20. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want it to be the depression diet. Some people I can't eat any of the foods that I like. Well, 80% of the time, try to clean up your act. If it's Friday night, it's your birthday, you're on vacation, it's a holiday, have at it. And then get back on tomorrow. No.
One thing that I always tell my patients too when it comes to weight is I don't want you to measure your success based on what that scale says. Okay, I don't want that because it's not going to tell you if you're constipated. It's not going to tell you if you're retaining water weight. I want it to be based on your obedience. Okay, if I told you to refrain from that or to increase your water or to do this, did you follow that? If you didn't, okay, then we still need some progress yet. And if we follow it, if we're obedient, that scale should go down. All right, that's just a byproduct of simply cleaning up our diet. And then also hormone stuff.
Yeah, everyone's right. And we didn't necessarily go into all of that because, well, it's 7 o'clock. Other questions? Well, thank you all for coming. We'll be here for a bit, so if you have questions, you can come find us. I think that, Lynn, are you scheduling consults? Lynn and Laura are at the desk, so if anyone's interested in doing that, you can certainly meet with them on your way out. But thank you so much. Thanks, Meg.